Let's move on to the story now. The South African Human Rights Commission is celebrating 25 years of existence. The leading champion of rights in the country started in 1995 and is now recognized globally for its work. To reflect on this then and the legacy and the work of the Commission, I'm joined by Commissioner Chris Nissen. Commissioner, thank you for talking to me. So 25 years, almost as old as the life of the nation itself in terms of democratic South Africa. But there's always this question of the balance between policing human rights violations and promoting a culture of human rights. What would you say is the path that the Human Rights Commission has traversed the most and more impressively over the last 25 years? Policing and chasing your own tails, or the issue of promoting a culture of human rights?
Well, thank you, Tulas, and greetings to all your viewers. Indeed, obviously the mandate of the South African Human Rights Commission is to protect, promote and monitor. And over the 25 years of the existence of the Human Rights Commission, indeed it has been found a balance between monitoring, promoting and, of course, protecting. However, we live in a very dysfunctional society with a very bad social cohesion history. And we still find a lot of problems where people's rights are being violated. We've held many inquiries, many hearings over the years, over a number of issues from evictions to land issue to racism to social media, etc. But still, it is a work in progress, because as long as you have a society like South Africa, you will have a human.
All right, I don't know what happened there. We seem to be losing Commissioner Chris Nissen, who was making the point. It does seem, Commissioner, that we're having some trouble with your line there, Commissioner Chris Nissen. Unfortunately, just fitting in just one question, really, out of a conversation that we had planned to have with Commissioner Chris Nissen. Let's see if we can take it forward, hoping that the connection holds. So, Commissioner, we were talking about the work that you've been doing in the last 25 years. Talk to me about the work you have done in implementing the provisions of the Constitution, the equality provisions of the Constitution. The amount of litigation you've had to involve yourself in has been quite significant in the last few years.
One would have hoped that in the 25 or 26 years of democracy that you do not get into litigation around equality, race, etc. But we do live in a South Africa where the inequality is so vast, as we are almost number one, number two in the world with regard to inequality. And we have not dealt sufficiently with the issue of race. We have not dealt efficiently with the building a South Africanness and how we can all work together as South Africa. And as we said, it's work in progress. And obviously, there's a lot of legacy issues that we need to deal with. But the Commission has been very successful in many cases with regard to litigation. But you can always go to the law. But unless we change human behavior in South Africa, human behavior towards South Africans looking at each other as South Africans and not necessarily through the old apartheid eyes.
Yeah, in fact, I'm glad you mentioned that, Commissioner, because my sense is that in the early years of our equality dispensation, the focus was on laws, legacy laws that were in place at the time, and sort of getting them to align with our democratic constitutional regime, and also government action as well, challenging some action that, initially didn't seem to be that problematic, but actually highlighting the problems in those laws. But right now it seems that it's more in the human-to-human interaction, in the interaction between individuals and institutions where unfair discrimination seems to be happening. And as I ask that question, we do seem to have lost you again, Commissioner. If you can hear me, is my sense correct that now the problem seems to be more on how people interact between people to people and other institutions other than government?
Absolutely. You can change laws. But laws does not necessarily change behavior. And therefore, it's very important that we work on social cohesion, and we must embed into every government department and also into civil society the whole issue about how do we build a South Africa where we can tolerate each other, where we can respect each other, and where we can differ from one another. However, the problem that we face is that also politicians are also guilty of fueling instead of helping and building social cohesion, are fueling the breakdown of social cohesion.
Lastly, Commissioner, the issue of resources, though. You do all of this work with limited resources. I mean, I was looking through some of your annual reports, and my understanding is that your budget is around 178 million rand annually. And there was a point where you were left with just 3.3 million rand for programmatic work. And the following year, it was down a further 40,000 rand in terms of the programmatic work. A lot of your money being spent on personnel costs. And the question arises, have you become pretty much an employment agency and hindered from achieving all these noble goals that we've been talking about the last few minutes by the simple fact that your budgets are not what they should be and they continue to be cut?
Indeed, we do have a problem with, the amount of money given to the enormous task, because we've got a very broad mandate, and we've got the enormous task of creating a culture of human rights within the Republic of South Africa. And remember, in the last few years, we've also seen socioeconomic rights being violated through corruption, because the lack of delivery, because of what happened in corruptive behavior. So we do have a problem of budget. But even now during COVID, I must thank all the monitors. Civil society came to the party. We had 550 monitors throughout the country, which we accredited with 220 organizations. Yes, indeed, we need more money. We need more money from government if we are serious of building a good citizenship, social cohesion, a society in which we can realize the Constitution. Then the South African Human Rights Commission need to be given more resources. Otherwise, the Constitution will be a pie in the sky for many people in this country.
So in terms of the generations of rights that we have in our Constitution, there's been a strong focus on the socio-economic rights after we dealt with the issues to do with the political rights initially in the early years of our democracy. But one of the questions that comes up is, where is the Human Rights Commission when communities are disgruntled by service delivery failures, right? It seems to me that there's a role for you to play there, because much of what the communities are talking about are issues that stem from rights that they're entitled to. Do you see a niche there for yourselves in terms of playing that role? I know that you did an investigation recently in collaboration with the Public Protector, for example, around the Alexandra Renewal Project. Do you see more of that role in communities?
Indeed, we did the same thing in other areas. And of course, you can't just have, people don't just eat democracy and eat political rights and say that I can go vote. A vote can't be eaten a vote unless your vote is translated into that basic socioeconomic rights, decent water, decent sanitation, access to water, decent health facilities, decent education, and all of those things. And the Human Rights Commission has in the last few years been involved in it, but there's a greater role for us to play. But it's also for government to hold government accountable at every level, whether it's municipal level or whether it's at provincial level. And for the fact is that we have maybe not held them accountable in the way we should. The time has come for the next 25 years or the next 5 years of the Human Rights Commission that we do not talk about the realization of socioeconomic rights and leave the people behind. We need to fight for and stand with the people, but also make government aware that socioeconomic rights is enshrined in the Bill of Rights and in the Constitution. And after all, this is what we all fought for. We fought for a better life. If you think of the Freedom Charter, spells out what a new South Africa should be. Sadly, due to a number of issues, we still see people have to go to the streets to demand justice.
Just briefly, Commissioner, there's a proposal that was made to you, a proposition that was made to you by members of Parliament some time ago about you spending the figures that I was mentioning on programmatic work, basically, your other costs taking up much of your budget and only being able to spend, the estimation was about 1.8% was used on your core programs. There was a proposition that the members of Parliament made to you that if you were a normal business entity, you would have had to close down if you were a private company. What's your sense of that? Would you have had to close down if you were a private company?
Well, maybe. But what we do not show is the amount of time that staff members in the provinces are spending in terms of with that meager budget visiting schools, monitoring schools, hospitals. I last financial year covered 9 provinces. During COVID, I've covered 6 provinces. I'm on my way now to Heidelberg, where there were allegedly 2 people that died in custody. So there are men and women within this commission that have really made many sacrifices, and we do not do not charge for it. Our stakeholder engagement, you can see, is enormous, despite the limited money that we have.
Commissioner Chris Nissen, thank you so much. I've got to thank you for your time. And of course, part of highlighting all of those challenges really is about the importance of that Chapter 9 institution, the Human Rights Commission.